You're grieving, and you're in front of the temple, and you're praying about a nanny. Dad's not thinking about prayer at all. He's thinking about Gypsy.
That's right, and everything here is timing. I mean, the fact is not that he had a mistress. Gypsy's trying to say it was casual. It's not casual when she's sending a selfie the day after, when they're texting during the funeral. It's not. It's the timing of her moving in 8 days later of this whole thing. It's so clear to this jury that this is a bunch of hogwash. Whether or not they can get over the other side of it, we'll see. But it's very clear this is a motive.
Again, and I've asked the question, Judy Ho, about just not liking Dr. MacNeill. I think this story here is probably the most hateful thing he did. Does this convict the guy? Does it piece together the story the prosecutors want told?
Well, they need some more, but the dramatic testimony of the daughters, the statements that are coming in from inmates, what the doctor said to a former mistress, all these pieces are circumstantial evidence. And as the viewers should know, circumstantial evidence sometimes can be as satisfying as direct evidence. Whether it is or not in this case, we'll see. But the prosecutor is putting together pieces that say, you weren't up in the middle of the night and watch it snow, but you went to bed, there was no snow, you woke up, there was snow. It snowed even though you didn't see it. Yeah, I disagree with the panelists who said that it's not about Gypsy. I think it is about Gypsy. You know, she even told, roommates that ways that they could get rid of Mrs. MacNeill. Look, I think it's about the two of them. I think that when you put the two together, you get a cocktail for murder. That's what the prosecutor is trying to say. It's not just about Dr. MacNeill. It's about Gypsy as well. And I think they're doing a pretty good job considering the lack of scientific evidence of cause of death.
Okay, well, let's listen to a little bit more from Dad. Here's Dr. Howard Willis, and he's on our brand new hit show, HLN After Dark, and he's talking about, well, who was in control? Who's manipulating who in this relationship between Dr. MacNeill and Gypsy? Let's listen.
You know, I don't know if she's credible or not, but if the jury buys it, it is nothing short of the linchpin in the entire case. You know, when you have the opportunity and the motive and you have confessed, which may be coming up, you have a good case. But this is the linchpin. If they believe it, the jury can convict on the evidence.
Right. I mean, the prosecutors, they're trying to piece it together. Science not great on their side, and he told them she died in January. Significant or not?
Yeah, I mean, it's significant because she's lying. I mean, and she's covering it up. You know, it appears she's a narcissist, much like Jodi Arias, to name some, that might be able to assist the doctor or cover this thing up. You know, all these little factors are very small, but a lot of pennies can add up to a dime or a quarter or whatever the price of admission is for Dr. MacNeill to spend the rest of his life in prison. Well, they certainly can be considered victims here. It's not just Michelle MacNeill, but her daughters that are victimized by her death. So, yes, they can be. There is a good legal question, by the way, why the judge lets in that statement that she makes as to the ultimate issue in the case, which is that she thinks he did it. I think that it's something the defense would have brought out to impeach her, so I think that's how it gets into the case, by the way. But look, these daughters are very, very powerful, emotional testimony for a prosecutor who doesn't have the scientific evidence he needs, so it's kind of hocus pocus. But I don't think, by the way, Alexis is a ringleader, because I think what she did here was get everybody together and say, there's something rotten in Denmark here, and I think it's Dad.
Well, and she was closest to the case, and I believe it opened up.
Well, I don't think it's a wash, but I don't agree that the fact that she was silent, basically, on her dad means anything here. You know, really, this statement was done a year or a year and a half after the murder. That's plenty of time for the other daughters, especially Alexis, who this judge, by the way, found tainted her later statements. In other words, she couldn't testify live today in court because the judge said, having lived with Alexis, the daughter who's the, in your words, the ringleader of all the daughters, but in any event believes the dad did it, tainted her testimony. Well, what's there to say she didn't taint this testimony, like in a divorce situation where one party is telling, you know, bad things about the other side? That's what I think. I don't think that means much.
Okay. And when you talk about little Ada, it takes a real turn with the family dynamic. Her biological mom is Vanessa. That's the daughter of Michelle and Martin MacNeill, but Vanessa had some drug issues, couldn't take care of Ada, so Martin and Michelle MacNeill, they adopt little Ada. That's the family tree and all this. And we come back, we're going to listen to Vanessa and the impact of a year and a half, and he's going to actually turn to Rachel and go, what was her name again?
Yeah, oh, what a tangled web we weave, and that's what's happening. I mean, look, it's not that unnatural for these daughters to be taking their mother's side, even if there wasn't a death here because the father was cheating. But this callousness, this 8 days later, you know, then you have him looking for the nanny right away. You know, it's not that unheard of, even for a doctor who has just lost his wife, to take a few weeks off and grieve and take care of the young 6-year-old. The fact that all he's concerned with is the nanny shows how consumed he was, how irrelevant Michelle was, except that she was out of the way. Hey, that was the only thing relevant.
Doctor, impactful in this case.
Well, it's cumulative. I mean, some of the other sisters were much more powerful. The fact that she believes he did it, you know, in essence, is powerful too. But cumulative, just one more thing. It just wasn't, in and of itself, a big piece of this puzzle.
Yeah. Hey, well, what could be...
She is, but, you know, the one thing about, you know, her being down to 2 Percocets and what happened, I really think this points out the weakness in the state's case. They just don't know that if it was a homicide or not, according to their own coroners. They don't know how it happened.
That's part of the science of the case. Jeff, how do you make sure that jury believes some inmate?
You know, the prosecutor has to do it because he's got to put these pieces together so as to, out of Dr. MacNeill's mouth, he gets an admission. And in this case, you know, calling her the B word is not the strongest type of admission that he did something here. He didn't like her. He had a mistress. We know that. That's a given in the case. So it's got to be a little bit more than that. The science is overwhelmingly bad for the state.
Got it.